Welcome to the Arkansas Cattle Business Podcast, brought to you by the Arkansas Cattlemen's Association. Here, we dive into the heart of Arkansas's cattle industry, where legislation, education, advocacy, and development come together to support the hardworking cattle producers of the natural state. Whether you're in the pasture or on the road, this is your connection to the people, policies, and programs shaping the future of our industry. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Arkansas Cattle Business Podcast. I am your co-host, Michelle Buffkin-Horton.
And I'm your other co-host, Norley Townsend.
And we are excited to be back. If you may have noticed, we missed a week of the Arkansas Cattle Business Podcast.
Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, we had very good intentions to record a podcast last week, but we were a little busy at the state fair.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked about it. We're like, we could do it. And it just, we couldn't do it. There was not enough time in the days. But it worked out because it gives us the opportunity to have one this week when we have lots of things to update y'all on and to talk about. So, we're here. We're excited about it. It finally feels like fall outside.
It does finally feel like fall.
I have a sweater on. Did we change hats? We changed hats.
We did change hats. That is Randy's midnight hat, I believe.
Yeah.
So, I think it's new.
Probably.
Of course, they're always new.
They're always new. They're always new. But we're excited about it. It feels like fall. We've been hitting the road with production sales, with county meetings. We've seen a lot of people talking about fall calving, talking about district fairs. Obviously, we just wrapped up state fair. So it's kind of my favorite time of year. Mm-hmm. Feels nice.
It's a good time of year.
It is. We were also just talking about how we all sound a little bit congested because of the weather change.
Yep.
It went from like 90 degrees last week to 40 and 50 this week. And so we, just like calves, are kind of struggling with that a little bit and might be a little head cold, congested here.
Yep.
But we're excited to come at you this episode talking about State Fair, talking about kind of the role we had there and the ability and the importance of showing livestock. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Arkansas Cattlemen's Leadership Course. So we'll talk about our ACLC program and the application reminder there. And we will also, of course, talk about the government shutdown continuing and also the recent comments by President Trump on importing Argentinian beef and tariffs and everything like that. So I'll have quite a robust discussion here, and you'll see it kind of change formats from previous times where like I've actually written questions for Norley to ask me, and so that way instead of me just ranting for a very long time, maybe we'll have some direct pointed answers and quotes and two questions that we know producers are having all across the state and nation.
Yep.
So let's jump into fair. So where were we? Like, why were we not here last week? What were we doing?
We were at the fair all week long in Barton Coliseum, which was a lot of fun.
Yep. We were able to pass out ribbons. We were able to interact with a lot of our members, see them. We just helped keep the books, do whatever was needed. If you've ever shown livestock, you know that it kind of is an all-hands-on-deck situation. And so especially when you have that many moving parts. And so we were asked to be there to be able to help, and we were happy to do so. I think we saw countless numbers of our members participating, competing, and winning. So that was very exciting to be able to see that. But yeah, we helped with most every cattle show that happened at the state fair last week. And so I think for you, I know you didn't show in Barton, but it was probably still a throwback to be back.
I did actually show in Barton at the Thanksgiving Classic and the spring shows. So it was a throwback. It was a lot of fun. It was good to be back in the show ring. Obviously I haven't been there in like 5 years. I graduated in 2020. So yeah, 5 years. So it's a lot different working the show ring instead of showing in the show ring. So that was an experience.
Yeah, it's also probably a little bit nicer when you can just show up and help instead of having to
go back there,
fit calves and do everything.
Wash, blow out, fit, all the things.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier on our end, for sure. A lot easier on our end.
Don't have to be at the barn at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, a lot easier on our end. But we're excited to be able to give back, and so one of the things I like to talk about is the importance of showing cattle. Like, yes, while we know not necessarily the animals that are competing in the show ring are the same ones that are going to be successful in the field, or the ones we have in the field. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But what other skills do you think you gained showing cattle that you still use today?
I guess just interacting with people, like the showmanship, looking the judge in the eyes, having, like, being prepared to fail. That's kind of a bad way to say it, but, like, you don't always win, and you got to be prepared for that. So,
and I think that's something that's really hard in our world right now. Is like, we all want to win. Obviously, we're all very competitive people. Like, of course, we want to win, but learning to be okay with failure and learning from failure, I think, is a very big piece of it. And that's one that people don't really think about. I think a lot of times we think about responsibility. We think about the showmanship of actually interacting and talking to adults and shaking hands and looking and making eye contact. But that being willing to fail and being willing to learn from failure.
And never giving up, because I never, like, bought any show cows. We literally just pulled them out of the pasture. Like, I never did great in the show ring. Like, I did good showmanship sometimes, but I never, like, had, like, a grand champion or anything. So, I mean, but I still had fun, and I still learned a lot of life lessons through that. So.
Yes. Yeah, and you make friends, especially when you're showing statewide fairs or juniors programs with the Thanksgiving Classic and things. So you're seeing people from all across the state that you probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet otherwise. Oh, yeah.
And I still have those friends today. I actually saw them last week, so, which was fun. Yeah.
We also, of course, obviously ate all the fair food, as one does at the fairgrounds.
Yep.
So that was very good. That was exciting. And then I think the highlight of the week was being able to go and participate in the premium sale and the sale of champions for the state fair. And so we've been going there for forever, as long as anyone can really remember. For the Cattlemen's, being able to participate, they sell the top 4 steers now. And so they sell the top 4 steers, and we were able to partner with different ag organizations. We partner with Farm Bureau, with Simmons Bank, with the electric co-ops, and then along with the State Fair Livestock Department and the State Fair as well, in different conglomerations of those 4 or 5 people, to purchase those top 4 steers to work together to make sure that money goes to the kid. Can you explain, maybe for our people that don't show cattle, like the premium sale portion of it? Like, are we buying the steer? Are we getting the animal?
No, we're just giving money to the kids.
Yeah. I was like, no, you don't actually get the meat. Like, you're just supporting the kids. You're being able to give money back and not even replenish, but just reward the hard work they've spent, the time and money and effort they've spent raising those animals. The exciting part was we actually had record-breaking year within the steers this year. So the premium sale itself brought in around a little over $200,000 before add-ons. And so each animal gets sold as a true auction, and then you can add on individually. And so people could add on after the sale was over. And so, but $200,000 prior to all the add-ons being added. And then the top steer actually brought in $40,000 this year, and so that was the highest the grand champion steer's ever been. And so it's really exciting for those members. And actually, I looked at it, like, all 4 steers that were in the sale are related to or children of our members, and so really excited to be able to see and congratulate them and support them in that way. And so, any other thoughts on State Fair?
It was a lot of fun. It was good to get out of the office for a minute, even though we came to the office, but we were like, all right, gotta go. Yep. But yeah, good to meet with our members, just being in the ring, being with people. So
yeah, interacting with people and seeing people seeing kids in their element, being able to see them. Somebody asked me the other day, like, do you think, like, the kids actually do the work? It's like, you can tell if they don't. And so I do think that there is value there for sure, because you can see the majority of the kids that showed this week were ones that were actually. Yeah,
they walked in with black hands from fitting and everything. So
yeah, which I love to see. Love to see it. So, all right, so that's our fun news. We are going to transition into. I'll talk a little bit about the government shutdown. It is continuing. We're recording this on Thursday, October the 23rd. 23rd. And so it is now 23 days into the government shutdown. I wish I had an end in sight. Like, I wish I had an answer for you. Like, oh, we'll go 7 more days. We'll do 30. Like, we don't know. No one really knows. There's not been a lot of movement, again, still on either side, to come to the table and have a conversation about how to end this shutdown. But one thing that did come out recently this week that will be another piece of good news is that the FSA offices, so the Farm Service Agency offices, are going to be reopening as of today, Thursday, October 23rd. And so we still don't know exactly what that looks like. Obviously, it's going to open up the opportunity to apply for FSA loans and things like that was not there before because they were closed. But does that completely reopen the Emergency Livestock Relief Program sign-up period? I've been told yes, but I'm waiting to confirm that. And so reach out to your local FSA office. If you are in a county that received or that was eligible for the ELRP program, and we can share the link in the description or whatever of our social media posts that talked about which counties those are. And so in Arkansas, because you do have to apply for that program, it is not automatic. You do have to apply for that program, but once you apply, if you're in an eligible county, you will get the application signed. You'll be good to go. And that technically the deadline is October the 31st. So it is the end of this month. We are going to be working to extend that deadline as many days as FSA was closed. And so hoping to extend that out, but we cannot guarantee that as of right now. So there's your government shutdown update. Is it still shut down?
And hasn't this been like the second longest government shutdown?
Not yet. So
Not yet.
Well, yeah, actually, yeah, it's the second longest, yeah. Yeah, so we're getting close to being the longest. So, yeah, this one would be 23 because the second one was 17 previously. So we have 35, most recently, 35-day shutdown a couple years ago, and then 23-day shutdown so far. And then prior to that would be like a 17-day shutdown in 2014-ish. And so we are definitely, we're up there. Just not a good record to have. Love if we didn't have that. And so we are still continuing to work with your congressional delegation on how we can come together and actually make some progress to reopening the government. And so, but it was nice to see that FSA will be reopening because that's one of the biggest impacts for cattle producers within this government shutdown. So that's our government shutdown update. Now we can hop into the fun topic.
Hop into the very fun topic.
Yeah. We, if you haven't heard, there's been quite a lot of discussion on social media here the last few days, starting on Friday of last week. So almost a week long of these comments being made about beef prices, about imports, about cattle producers, all the things. And so we're going to discuss a little bit about what's happening, what they mean, and what it actually can do for producers and how it affects producers.
Yeah.
So
hop right in. What exactly did President Trump say, and why did those comments raise concerns in the cattle industry?
Yeah, so President Trump made 2 big comments that really grabbed our attention. First, on Friday of last week, so almost a week ago now, or a week by the time this airs, a week ago, he said that we would like to import more beef from Argentina to help lower prices for consumers. And so that was one of the issues. That was one of the big things. That was the first thing that caught our attention. And so it took a couple of days for that to fully come out. He did say, hey, we're gonna lower beef prices, and that was kind of all he said on Friday, and then it just kept expanding from there. And so you saw quite a lot of market volatility, saw lots of movements, lots of conversations, and then it came out earlier this week that was his plan, was to import beef from Argentina to help lower beef prices for consumers. And then most recently he claimed that the only reason cattlemen are doing so well right now is because of tariffs that he placed earlier in his presidency. And so that part of the issue arises for the fact that cattlemen are not riding a political wave. They're surviving the longest rebuild we've seen in decades. So we have the prices that we're seeing right now are not solely because of tariffs. The prices that we were seeing previous to these comments, maybe not even right now, the prices that we were seeing previous to these comments were based on a lot of different things. As y'all know, the cattle markets are a very complicated process. There's not just one input that goes into them. It was the fact that our national cow herd is at a 70-year low after years of drought, high feed costs, and inflation. We've seen more and more people selling out or selling cattle. Even if they're not selling out completely, they're decreasing herd sizes. And so the laws of supply and demand more so have driven the cattle prices. And so that's one of the issues there, is that cattle producers are, for the first time in a very long time, it's not even that they're making money, they're finally breaking even. Like, they're finally being able to pay off debt and catch up on items, and here they are getting what feels like personally attacked. And so that's a big piece of it. On the Argentinian beef deal, we'll talk about that obviously in detail, but the issue there arises for a lot of producers in the fact that it's a market manipulation, and that's exactly what he wants it to be. And that's why he said he did it. He specified he wanted to lower beef prices for consumers. And so, yeah, so that's the kind of the thoughts, the process is at least what's been said so far. We'll see, obviously, this is an ongoing conversation. By the time we record it, it will probably be out of, we'll already have new updates, I'm sure.
Yeah, and he said those comments about the tariffs yesterday morning.
Yep. Very quickly moving.
It's been interesting to see this all unfold.
Yes.
But he mentioned importing beef from Argentina to help lower prices. On the surface, that might sound good for consumers. What is the real impact for producers?
Yep. And so, I mean, that's the argument. And so for a lot of producers, the issue is not necessarily importing the beef. It is the fact that he wants to do it to impact the markets. That's the key, is like, you do this to impact the prices. We know we're at a national herd low. We know we have to import lean beef. We do not produce a lot of lean beef in this country because we raise fat cattle. We are very good at what we do. And so we need lean beef for ground beef, for burgers, for fast food restaurants, for things like that. Okay, that's fine. We know the Mexican border is closed to cattle because of the New World screwworm. So we can understand the economics of needing lean ground beef. However, no one has been able to confirm that that's what we're going to be importing. And no one's been able to say, oh, like, we're doing this to rebuild or to supplement the supply that we have. The statement was, we were doing this to lower beef prices. And I don't even know that that's going to lower beef prices. I went to the grocery store this week and I spent $9. Actually, it was on sale, so I spent $8 on a pound of ground beef of 80/20. Is that more than it was last year? Yeah, probably. I don't remember. I didn't look at it. But I also spent more money on pasta. I spent more money on apple juice, on all of these things. But yet the only thing that is being targeted is beef. And so I know President Trump even said that the only high prices we have right now are beef. That's wrong. My receipt from the grocery store will tell you that that is wrong. We did not buy that much food, and I feel like we spent a lot of money. And so prices are inflated all across the board. And so, but what the prices are inflated drastically on, still $8 for a pound of ground beef. More money, but comparatively not horrible. Your steaks, your high-end cuts, your high-value cuts are where consumers are feeling the pain a lot more, is on those high-end cuts. And I don't think that that's what we're going to import from Argentina. I believe we're probably going to import lean ground beef, which is not going to affect the price of steaks. It's not going to help consumers in the end. All it's going to do is add pressure to the U.S. cattle markets at the same time that our producers are trying to rebuild their herd. And so it looks like it could be a quick fix for prices, but it's a long-term hit for American producers. And so that's the hard part, is that the beef industry is not the most simple industry. We're very complicated, and our life cycle has a lot of different moving parts, and so just doing one thing, importing one item or one piece, is not going to necessarily immediately impact the grocery stores or impact the grocery stores for consumers at all. So,
Welcome to agriculture.
yep.
So, how have Arkansas producers reacted to all of this? We've gotten lots of calls.
Yeah. So phone's been ringing quite a lot. We've been looking on Facebook quite a bit, seen a lot of social media posts about it. I think the overwhelming reaction is just frustration. Our members understand and understand that consumers are worried about grocery store prices. They are too. But we also realize that we can't fix the current food supply by weakening the foundation. And so that's the hard part. Is like they're frustrated by it. Like most of them understand, like, okay, we don't produce lean ground beef. We need lean ground beef. Okay, great. But that's not what you said you were going to do, Mr. President. Like, that's not what you just said you were going to do. And so why are you now coming out and attacking us? And that's where a lot of these people are getting frustrated. I think the thing that sums it up the best is that Arkansas producers aren't asking for a handout. They're asking for a fair market. So that's it. That's all they're wanting. They don't want to manipulate the market. That sends the wrong message. They're not asking for a handout. They're just asking for a fair market and to let the markets work.
Yep. And we've seen headlines move markets before. Did these comments have any effect on cattle prices or buyer confidence?
Yeah. So on Friday, when President Trump even just hinted that he was going to lower beef prices, but didn't quite specify how that was going to happen, we did have some inkling, obviously, that was going to be through importing Argentinian beef, but that's not what he had come out and said yet. We saw the market limit down Friday. We also saw, after his comments of the reason cattle producers are making money right now and doing so well is because of his tariffs, we again saw market limit down. And so what that matters right now is, or what that does right now is, obviously that volatility it comes back up. Markets will come back up. Will they come back up to where they were? We don't know yet. We'll see. I mean, by the time this airs, we'll find out. But what it does is, we're right in the middle of fall run. We are right in the middle of one of the busy seasons for producers selling cattle. Not just production sales, as we've talked about, but just sending calves to the sale barn.
LOL, we just weaned calves last Thursday.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's perfect time. Like, it is the fall run. And so they react quickly, markets react quickly to the uncertainty, they're very volatile already, and so it can make people and buyers hesitant to move forward. And so like I said, we've already seen it limit down twice in 5 days times, and so you can see that the markets are very responsive to political comments. And so one of the things I heard somebody say the other day was, a few sentences from a podium can shake the confidence of the entire industry. And I think that has been made very apparent this week, is that words have consequences and words have effect on the market.
For sure. So is this just about short-term economics, or does it raise larger questions about food security and domestic production?
That's the hard part, is it's both. It is both, and that's what makes it difficult, is because, again, producers are consumers. Everybody would love lower prices for everything. That'd be great. That's always the goal. Usually it's like, hey, I would love to spend lower input costs. Let me specify that, not lower prices. Everyone would love to see lower input costs, whether that be a producer, whether that be a consumer. But what is sustainable for the industry? And so I think it's a big piece of it is, our cattle producers are not just feeding Arkansas, they're part of feeding America. And we've been importing beef for a long time. Let's not stray away from that fact. Let's not avoid that fact because we have been. But a lot of what we've been importing has been to supplement the industry that we have. Again, Arkansas cattle producers, American cattle producers are very, very good at producing fat cattle. We don't produce very many lean cattle. And so that is what we've been importing. And so if that's the direction we want to go, great, perfect. Like we can work on that, but let's also find, I think another big issue that we haven't even talked about is the unfair trade balance that we already have with Argentina. And so we've been importing from Argentina previously at a drastically unfair advantage to Argentina. How can we continue this relationship? To me, that's not a friend. That's not somebody that's supporting, is if we import 80 billion and they import 5 billion. That's nowhere near the same amount. And so how can we find a more balanced trade relationship? And then the other piece of this that is concerning, that goes back to the food security, is not only food security for people having food on their plate. Yes, obviously that is a big deal, but also for the national security of our food is foot and mouth disease. Argentina is confirmed to have foot and mouth disease. And so the issue there is that it can be transferred on live animals. It can also be transferred on carcasses or on boxed beef. And so we run the risk of, we avoid screwworm through Mexico for now, but yet we could be importing beef from a country that has foot and mouth disease, which we're currently avoiding in this nation. And so how does that make, a lot of producers are asking, how does that make sense? Why are we completely avoiding one but yet being perfectly fine with the other? And we know the foot and mouth disease vaccine bank is available for producers. We do have a vaccine bank, but it is not necessarily at the level where if we start importing quite a lot of beef or cattle that it's protected down the road. So it's a very complicated process, and that's the hard part, is that producers, they want consumers to have beef on their plate. And that's the other hard part of it that I didn't even talk about, is that even with increased cost, consumers have continued purchasing beef. You'll see some, obviously there's always going to be the few that don't, but statistically, based on the data that is available, consumers haven't really slowed down that much on buying beef. Why are we artificially adjusting the market then? So that's the frustration. That's the question. That's where a lot of our producers are coming from. So I'll get off my soapbox.
All reality, it's complicated.
Yeah.
So if you could talk directly to policymakers in DC or Little Rock, what would your message be?
Yep. And so the good news is we do. Immediately after this occurred, I've already spoken to the majority of our congressional delegation about these conversations and shared with them the frustration of our members, the concern over the market manipulation, and the concern over the food security issues here. And so our takeaway is that we're open to trade, but not at the expense of U.S. producers and not at the expense of U.S. food safety. And so if we want to help consumers, let's lower input costs, let's improve processing capacity, let's strengthen our domestic supply. And I know that's a big picture thing. It's not like we're going to rebuild our herd in a year. That's not feasible. We can supplement where needed, but let's make sure we're keeping our producers forefront in that. Let's make sure that we are doing these other items too. And so the other piece of this is a lot of what we've been seeing right now is discussing where the beef comes from and the labeling with it. And so we've seen a lot of conversations about product of the U.S. We've seen a lot of conversations about cool country of origin labeling. And so for the Arkansas Cattlemen's Association, I always like to remind people that product of the U.S. Used to have a loophole that was able to say, hey, if it was raised, processed, or packaged in the United States, it was a product of the U.S. That is no longer the case. Now it has to meet all three. It is not or, it is and. if it is raised, processed, and packaged in the United States, it is then a product of the U.S. And while that is not a mandatory label, if it is something that consumers want, if they want to know where their food comes from, you're going to see more and more, now that that loophole is closed, you're going to see more and more companies start utilizing that label, that product of the U.S. label. And so you should start seeing it more in the grocery stores, and as a consumer or as a producer, you should feel comfortable knowing going forward that that label is true and it is going to be a product of the United States. And so that's another piece of it. And so that's what we also are discussing with our policymakers, because it is a piece of it. Is if a consumer wants to know, great, perfect. We want them to have that ability.
And for consumers listening, what can they do to support U.S. beef and Arkansas ranchers?
Yep. So for consumers, obviously, we hear you. We are also consumers. We're buying beef too, whether that is processing it ourselves, raising it and processing it locally, or whether that is going to the grocery store and buying beef. We're doing that. But our producers are working every day to make it more affordable. And a part that consumers, the public, does not understand is that producers are not price setters. Producers are price takers. So that $8 that I paid for ground beef at the grocery store the other day, that $8 did not go to the producer. That producer did not set it. Unless they are selling direct to consumer, they have obviously a lot more say over that. But buying beef from the grocery store, producers are not the ones setting that price. And again, producers are not. So somebody was like, well, producers are just getting rich. And I was like, I mean, I wish. We're not. Producers are just now breaking even. And so they have struggled for so long to even pay the bills. And so for the last few years, it's been actually very nice where we're like, okay, we can maybe pay down some debt. We can think about some small improvements. Let's not spend a ton of money. But let's think about some ways that we can grow and benefit and better our operation. And so I will say that whether you buy beef at the local farmers market, which are wrapping up, or if you buy beef directly from a consumer or from a producer, you can look on our website and buy through the local beef directory and find out places close to you who's selling them. If you're a producer, you can advertise on that as well, so you can click the same link and fill out your forms, so that way you can let consumers know that you're selling. Or if you're buying beef direct from the grocery store, those products are still produced with the same amount of care, the same amount of thought, the same amount of goal for sustainability and growth and support for producers.
Yep. And what should cattlemen be watching for in the weeks ahead?
Yeah, so we have been sending out, shared a campaign this week on social media to send a letter to Congress, to both your senators and your elected representative as well, discussing this Argentinian beef deal, discussing the issues that we've touched on here, along with to discuss President Trump's recent comments. And so that letter is available. We are hoping to see some positive conversations come from that. We did see USDA has recently made an announcement that they're going to work on rebuilding the herd and rebuilding the cattle supply. Right now, that program, that plan is pretty loose, and so we will see how that shakes out. I know Secretary Rollins, so the U.S. Ag Secretary, DHS, so your Department of Health or HHS, so your Department of Health and Human Services, Secretary Kennedy, and then your Small Business Administration as well, all were together on that plan of trying to revitalize small producers, revitalize large producers, revitalize anyone they can within the agriculture sector. So we'll keep you updated on how that plan shakes out. Again, it's pretty vague, pretty general right now. We're hoping to see some more pieces come together of what we've talked about, of how we can make this more sustainable for producers down the road. But I will encourage you, if you haven't filled out that letter, fill out the letter. Arkansas has already sent almost 3,000 letters to D.C. so far this week, and so it's only in a few days. It's very exciting. So we know our producers are concerned about this. We care about this. We want to we want to do that, but also that those 3,000 letters make a difference, because every time they get a letter from a constituent, they are then more inclined to have a conversation about how to fix these issues. And so we're going to stay at the table. We're going to continue having these conversations with our elected officials so that we can best represent Arkansas producers all across the board.
And you can find that campaign on our social media, Facebook, Arkansas Cattlemen's Association, or Instagram, _Cattlemen. And then I'll also send it out in tomorrow's weekly newsletter as well.
Perfect.
And if you can't find it, let me know.
Yep.
Call us, email me.
Yep.
I'll email it to you.
We'll put it in the description. We'll put it everywhere.
Yeah, obviously.
We'll put it
in the
everywhere.
link. I forgot about that. Yeah. So any final thoughts you want to leave with our listeners about the situation and the strength of Arkansas beef?
Yep. So I wrote this one down so I wouldn't go off on a tangent over here. So as you can tell, like we're very
passionate.
This is very passionate because this is something that's going to affect our producers for potentially for years to come, for generations to come. And so we're going to continue these conversations. But beef prices will always move up and down, but we can't build strong markets on political sound bites. We need policies that support the people who raise cattle, protect consumers, and strengthen our domestic supply chain. Arkansas cattlemen are proud of what they produce and will continue fighting for the right to do it right here at home. And so that's the thing. That's the key. That's what the Cattlemen's is here for. Yes, we want you to send a letter. We want you to be involved. We want you to reach out to your elected officials. But we're also going to be doing that. We're going to be doing that on behalf of you and for you, and making sure that united we have a voice. And so, yes, while 3,000 individuals have sent letters, we also have the whole of the Cattlemen's reaching out as well. And so we want to help protect and support and continue to grow the Cattlemen's here in this state. And so that's the biggest takeaway, is we're keeping an eye on it. We will keep you updated. The podcast will not be the best place to keep you updated, I promise, because this is going to keep moving. This is going to keep changing. Follow us on social media. Look and see. Look on Facebook. Look on Instagram, wherever it might be. That'll be where you can stay most up to date on what's occurring.
Yep.
And so.
And I know you've had multiple phone calls. They were like, hey, we need to chat. Like, she was on the phone all day yesterday, like, staffers call her like, hey, we need to talk. She's like, yeah, we do, in fact.
Yeah,
in fact. So it's kind of cool that they call us. We're like, okay, yeah, here.
Yes. No, it works out. And that's the thing. That's the nice part, is we are very lucky to have a federal delegation that truly cares about Arkansas cattle producers and that understands the impact of this market volatility, what these comments, all of these things have on Arkansas cattle producers and how they can work to address it. But again, this is not necessarily something Congress is doing. This is from the president. And so they are providing guidance, they are providing input, but they're not the ones driving. And so we're also having conversations and working with our national affiliate to have direct conversations with USDA, who has a lot more influence and impact on President Trump as he moves forward. And so we're hoping to see some realization of how this is affecting producers and how producers truly feel about it. Because, I mean, we were told, I think, over almost 20,000 letters, probably over 20,000 letters at this point, have been sent by cattle producers to this administration about this conversation right here, this topic right here, expressing a lot of the same concerns that we have today. And so it's a very, very unified voice, for sure. So it's a very heavy topic. And again, it's one that is complicated, is convoluted. It's hard to explain to people the way the life cycle and industry of cattle work, because we're not vertically integrated. We're very different. Like, there's different segments all across the board. Just because beef is high at the grocery store does not mean that cow-calf producers are getting all of that money. We have been historically getting quite a bit lately. It's very nice. But again, they're not getting rich. Like, they're not the ones. Like, they're not out buying vacation homes and doing all of these things. Like, we're able to finally make ends meet. And a lot of our producers, what I've heard from them is that they would like the ability to continue to make ends meet. And like I said earlier, they're not asking for handouts. They are asking for fair markets. So, with that, what good news? Let's end on a happy note. So now I'm like over stressed about this. But this is what it's here for. This is what the Cattlemen's is here for, is to do this exact job. And that's why I'm very passionate about it, is because I was like, oh my gosh, this is so hurtful. It feels like we take 3 steps forward in the cattle industry and then like 7 steps back is what this has felt like. And so, but we're going to end with good news. We've talked about what the Cattlemen's is doing here in Little Rock while we were fighting conversations in D.C., but what else do we have going on for the Cattlemen's? What reminders do we have for people as we wrap up this episode?
Apply for ACLC, Arkansas Cattlemen's Leadership Course. Applications are due December the 7th.
Perfect. And so, again, completely free program, paid for by sponsors. And fundraising for that program, you have to be 21 to apply. But after that, it's for, I'll use air quotes here, like young, beginning cattle producers. But it's fairly loose, fairly free with that. So if you're somebody that wants to learn more about the cattlemen's, learn more about the cattle industry, and learn how to better your operation, be a perfect fit. Applications are online. Go ahead and apply. Got a couple months left. So with that, thank you all so much for tuning in. I encourage you to follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and then subscribe wherever you find podcasts.
Yep. Thank y'all. This is the Arkansas Cattle Business Podcast, your trusted source for all things cattle in the natural state.